Joined right now by the head coach of the Green Bay Packers. They are unbeaten. They play the New York Giants on Sunday. 6 years now as their head coach and led them to a Super Bowl championship last season. Mike McCarthy is my guest. Mike, absolute pleasure to have you back. How are you?
I'm doing great, Jim. How you been?
Mike, I'm doing great. Doing great. You know, you guys were coming off that short week, so it kind of gave you a longer week to work with. As a coaching staff, I know you want your players to get away and get some time off. Do the coaches get that same time off, or do you double down and work even harder?
Well, the coaches didn't get the same time off as the players, but the coaches were able to have 2 days off, and we just spent the other days really focusing in on our next opponent, the Giants, and some self-scout items that we wanted to make an emphasis of when a team came back.
Mike, during the course of a year as head coach, can you ever unplug for more than an hour or even 2?
It's hard to unplug, but I'm fortunate. I've a young family, so it works out great.
You know, it's always said, Mike, that defending a championship is tougher than winning a championship. After you guys won the Super Bowl last year, were you at all concerned that when you sent the team away, that there might be some complacency that might set in? Were you worried at all about a hangover?
Yeah, no, Jim, I really wasn't, just because of what was on the landscape of the potential lockout. So it was clearly a different off season than anyone that ever existed, let alone one coming off the Super Bowl. So there was just so much uncertainty, and then it went the way it did too. So I really didn't think that was a factor, and I thought it was really evident the day our guys came back to training camp, because it was all about getting back to football.
Mike McCarthy, my guest. Explain what you mean by that. Why, with the lockout, did it make it less likely for there to be complacency or hangover?
Well, because I think you're not going through the normal rigors of an off season, and you don't have a bunch of people, giving you attention about what you accomplished. All the attention was on the new CBA, and I think any time you have less attention, it gives the individual the opportunity to focus on his job, and I think that was definitely the case for our team.
That makes sense. You go back to that game, Mike, on Thanksgiving Day. National television, you've got an in-division game on the road. Detroit's playing better football than they have. I mean, you guys are not strangers to the big stage, but that was a little bit different for them. In fact, was it different than the typical normal regular season game? Did the whole thing feel a little bit different?
Well, I think we had the opportunity to play in big games such as, Thanksgiving Day, a big Monday night football game. It definitely adds, more energy. There's more hype to it, and even more so as you get later in the season. And I've always looked at them as opportunities for your team to learn from, because it's that's what you're trying to prepare your team for when you get into the playoffs, because there's always an extra emphasis. The speed of the game goes up a little more, and I think that was definitely the case in Detroit.
You guys have had the opportunity to play those games recently, in recent years. Detroit has not played a lot of those games. Did you think that maybe it was only a matter of time before they lost their composure, that they got caught up in the game itself?
Well, we really didn't go in with that, with that being part of the plan, but we did go in, addressing it, that there's going to be a lot of emotion in the building, especially being on the road. The crowd noise was going to be, higher than we'd ever experienced over there, and all those things held true. So we just really focused on ourselves staying composed, because we knew the type of game we were getting ready to play.
Well, they lost their composure, and Ndamukong Suh got ejected from that game. Ryan Grant, Mike, was saying that he thought that the suspension was not appropriate. He was upset with the apology. Where do you come out on that? Do you think that punishment fit that crime, and what did you think about the apology?
It's as far as the apology, I didn't even see it, but the league has protocol that they follow in these types of situations, so I'm comfortable with the way everything's been handled, and I'm sure there's a lot of opinions about it, but frankly, myself and our team has moved on.
You'll tell me it's not your guy. Let me ask you this, just generally. You've been around a lot of players your whole life. Can guys typically change, or are they just a certain way, and that's the way they are?
Oh, I think there's definitely a reason to believe that nurture over nature sometimes can affect an individual. I think environments definitely have changed. Professional football players, and history would support that sometimes people just needed, a new climate, new environment.
Packers head coach Mike McCarthy, my guest. Aaron Rodgers obviously is having an amazing year. In fact, he's on a different level this year than even he was last year when you guys won it all. In your mind, what's been the biggest difference for him?
Well, I just think it's really not only just Aaron, but everybody around him. They're all on the same page. Aaron has progressed every single year, and now is just like you say, he's just playing at an unbelievable level, and it speaks not only to to his preparation and development, but also the relationships and the development of the offensive players around him. So it's the most productive group of offensive players we've had in my time here, and Aaron's leading the charge. But there's a lot of good football players supporting him.
And Mike, you've told the story before, but you and I haven't talked about it. And I think it's really interesting, at least to me. When the draft came down, you were the offensive coordinator when the team took Aaron Rodgers. Certainly not your call per se, but at that time you did like Alex Smith. When you took over and you and Aaron Rodgers had a conversation, you made a point of saying to him, hey, I just want to put it out there. I want you to know, at that time I did like Alex Smith a lot. Why was it important for you to tell him that?
Well, that's not really exactly how the...
Explain how it went.
Well, we sat down. I just felt it was important for Aaron and I to sit down and talk about it. And, it's funny, we still talk about it sometimes, even today. We had a conversation a couple of weeks ago about the whole draft process and where are, certain individuals today compared to, where they started, back in 05, 06. So, it's kind of a unique experience. I'm sure him and I will be talking about it, the rest of our lives. But, I think it's like anything. When you have something that's in the room, it's important to address it. So, and I did that in our first conversation with Aaron.
You guys still talk about it, or he still brings it up? Aaron, boy, he is a serious fuel guy. He knows what's been said. He knows what's been written. That's an extremely prideful guy.
Oh, no doubt about it. Yeah, no doubt about it. He probably, every time he brings it up, he gets mad at me again, and then, we go through the whole process. But it's, I like to think we laugh about it now.
Hey, Mike, what makes him such a great leader? I mean, you can tell clearly guys follow him into battle. He leads from the front. What makes a great leader at that level?
Because he cares. I mean, he serves his teammates. I think to be a good leader, you have to do that. There's a whole, dynamic in that locker room that's unique, and it's really a credit to his personal approach to his job. This is not just his job that he does 9 to 5. He has strong personal relationships with a number of the players in the locker room, and is very cognizant of particularly a new guy coming in and making him feel welcome to the culture. And he does a really good job of spreading himself around the locker room. It's unique.
One last thought. I understand that you can't get to 16 until you get to 12. I'm just saying, if you get to 15-0 and you've already locked up the home field and you've won your division, you've hit all those intermediate goals, and then that's the next thing, is that important to the players? Would they want to take a shot at running the table?
Oh, I don't think there's a player that wouldn't want a shot. I mean, that's players want to win games. So, but like you said, we're focused on getting to 12-0. We're focused on winning our division. That's our immediate goal.
I figured as much. Packers head coach Mike McCarthy, my guest. Mike, appreciate the visit. Thank you very much.
All right, Jim. It's great talking with you.
You too, Mike. Great talking to you. Packers head coach Mike McCarthy. Always good to get an NFL head coach, especially one that's sitting there as the defending Super Bowl champ and 11-0. Aaron Rodgers, we always talk about that draft and guys who went before me. I'm telling you, that guy had so much motivation and so much pride and so much fuel. There's certain fuel guys that they have it. Initially, you probably didn't think that of him. You can imagine those 3 years that he was waiting his time, waiting behind Brett Favre, finally gets the opportunity, and then everybody killed him, jumped him, hammered him. You can only imagine how much greater his motivation was, and just kept growing and building and growing and building. And on top of that, the guy could play, and he knew he could play. It's not a shock he's ended up where he is. And he's got a lot of talent around him. You know what it tells me? Mike McCarthy says, I'm one of those guys that likes to have things out there. I think that, and I think 50% of it is he knows Aaron Rodgers. And probably he knows that Aaron Rodgers knew that maybe he was an Alex Smith guy. I'm telling you that there's something about Aaron Rodgers that people underestimate. He's got an edge, and he's got this fuel that people underestimate. Not the guys around him, they know. The guy's extremely